GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And welcome, everybody, to this edition of Trust the Podcast here on the Gear Radio Network. This here, episode 155, episode 155, the Buffalo Bills at the Baltimore Ravens. A little bit of a different flow this week. Hang with me, and I will get you there. But first, you can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, and wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure, please, don't hit. Ryan always says make sure to hit the subscribe button, but just gently tap it. Don't break your damn phones. These things cost too much. Gently tap that subscribe button wherever you may be, and you'll get the latest and greatest without having to rely on social media or anything like that. But for this week, the host is me, John Cimino, at I am JC Money on Threads, and joined this week by the Unpaid Intern. He takes pictures everywhere. CJ Downey picks. I'll let you let us know where we can see your picks. But ladies and gentlemen, Unpaid Intern, Chris Downey at CJ Downey on the Twitter, X, whatever. Chris, welcome to Trust the Podcast, my man.
Appreciate you, John. How you doing? Good to be here. Long time coming.
Yes, indeed.
Been a couple times with Ryan throughout the years, but first time on Trust the Podcast. So
first time
glad to be here.
The man, the myth that drew up the beautiful, wonderful logo you see on that podcast that you subscribe to, listeners. The man that did that. This guy right here, Chris Downey. Chris, let's give a little bit of background on you. Obviously you're a Bills fan, but tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh, where to start? Born in New York, obviously. Now I live in North Carolina. I work at NC State. Graphic design, photography, enjoy that. And enjoy watching the Bills on Sundays in the fall.
Have you been a lifelong Bills fan? I would say
yes.
I would say yes, but what was your first vivid Buffalo Bills memory?
Crying after the forward pass in '99 against the Titans.
The Music City Miracle. It's funny because Ryan, that's his first vivid Bills memory.
Yep.
And it's cool to hear that, and it's even cool to hear like folks even younger, the generation after you, that have their first vivid memories. My first vivid memory was the first AFC Championship run, man, and the 89-90 season like that. That was my first vivid memories. But I grew up in a largely Bills household. My uncle Tim has been a season ticket holder. I don't think he's won this year now because they jacked them prices up real high now, and it's even going to be higher with new high mark too. But he goes all the way back to the War Memorial Days, so he's got all sorts of memorabilia, things like that, which is pretty cool. So that's where I'm the sympathizer here. But really quickly, now to move on here to the rundown, we're going to talk about the embarrassments. Quite frankly, there's no other way to put it. Sunday night we had last week when Ryan covered this for the Monday night victory. It was Monday night decimation or whatever the hell he put on there, right? This is a Sunday night embarrassment. Baltimore defeats Buffalo 35-10 behind Derrick Henry, his 199 yards rushing. Lamar Jackson, 2 touchdowns. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Ryan, our actual host, he's going to come to us briefly for a little bit. It was in one of the first of the 3 big things. With some analysis on his perspective on the game. We'll talk to, he'll give you a little bit about that. Von Miller's in the news again. A couple days ago, as a press recording, it was told to everybody that he was going to be suspended for 4 games, kind of stemming that. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. And then we'll look around the league, specifically zoning in on the AFC East, because if you are a fan of an AFC East team, Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, y'all wore the same sad hats. So, but we'll go ahead and we'll kick it off to the first of the 3 big things. That's brought to you, of course, by PuckLuck.com, your one-stop resource for all your NHL sports betting action. Puck Luck provides win percentages and score projections for each and every NHL game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just in a rut? Puck Luck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note that puckluck.com is in no way affiliated. This is very important. They're no way affiliated with the NHL. Its teams are the NHL Players Association. Puckluck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. Please gamble responsibly. Now, Chris, here we go. We're going to kick it off to the host with the most, coming to you from Orlando. BLTD's Mr. Perez knows all about Orlando. He will tell you that too. Mr. Ryan Wolf, take it away.
How's it going, everybody? Ryan Wolf here, live on location in Orlando, Florida. Even though I'm off the podcast this week, I can't help myself. I got to get some audio in for you guys. Get some thoughts on the Buffalo Bills right before John and Chris take on over. Now, bad news is the Buffalo Bills got smoked. They were humbled on national television on Sunday Night Football by the Baltimore Ravens, which it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, the good news is the Buffalo Bills are 3-1. Looking at some more bad news, the Buffalo Bills defense was exposed for being weak up the middle due to injury. We knew about this, but teams had not been able to take advantage of it. I mean, Balin Spector and Dorian Williams and up the middle, they are not Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano as much as they've looked really good. They are not those all-pro level players. But the other bad thing that we have to look for moving forward, this puts a game plan on tape, how to beat the Buffalo Bills by just hammering the ball up the middle, run up the gut, and pressure the Buffalo Bills up the middle. I have to presume that not only Sean McDermott, but Bobby Babich as well probably have some plans in the work to find a way to stop that game plan from being effective against the Buffalo Bills. But at the end of the day, the good news is there really only is one Derrick Henry in the National Football League. Yes, there are some other talented running backs in the league, but there are not many that are like Derrick Henry. Bad news, this Buffalo Bills offense looked out of sync on Sunday. There's just no question about that. It's not built to come back from such a deficit. The one thing we've talked about this offseason and coming into this season in the preseason was that the Bills don't have a legitimate downfield threat established. Yes, with the absence of Stephon Diggs to Houston, the Buffalo Bills offense really misses that guy that can kind of go over the top and be a playmaker or a game breaker. But with the same thought in mind, the Buffalo Bills still have 13 more games to figure this out. And honestly, if we're being logical and not overreacting, this loss against the Ravens snapped a 43-game streak of Buffalo not losing by double digits, which ran from 2021 to 2024. So if the Bills either are winning or if they lose, they're losing by less than 10 points, which is pretty impressive for a football team to be that consistent in the National Football League when, any given Sunday, anything can happen. So again, yes, the Buffalo Bills were exposed a bit on Sunday Night Football, but like I said, there's a long season ahead of us. And Milano, Bernard, Taron Johnson, a lot of injuries, a lot of guys that are going to get healthy on the defensive side of things that'll ease things up. Offensively, there's still time to gel, getting more guys comfortable like Curtis Samuel, who has not been utilized a ton, whether it's due to injury or ineffectiveness, one or the other. But again, it's almost good in my opinion. Glass is always half full. I'm sure John's chuckling as he hears me talk about this, but it's good to put a bad game on tape so that way you know where you need to get better and what you need to focus on to be the best team in the AFC, because right now, honestly, it's up for grabs. I mean, Kansas City doesn't look great. Baltimore didn't look good to start the season. And all the other contenders, we don't know if they're contenders or pretenders at this point because, again, it is the quarter mark of the season. But at the same time, the Bills are still the best team in the AFC statistically. So with that being said, I mean, there's a big test on Sunday against Houston, which, I definitely think the Bills are going to win that one, in my opinion. But, don't want to jump too far ahead. But I do want to get this in, though. I know that John's got the audio, but we know no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. We are Trusted Podcast. You are not. I am Ryan Wolf coming to you live on location in Orlando, Florida on my very nice, very warm, very humid vacation. As always, go Bills. John and Chris, back to you.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. And I hate you being out there right now. I hate your stinking guts. Anywho, hope you're enjoying out there with the family. Tell the family I said hello. Chris, to kind of expand on his analysis there, your thoughts. You were watching the game along with us. I was half watching it in real time with you guys. We is well documented. I like some of the vices during the football game, so my mind wasn't fully present for the entire game. But Chris, from your perspective, what the hell, man?
I think it's one of those situations where everyone thought the Bills were going to take a step back this year, and then you go out 3-0, top team in most power rankings, MVP chance for Josh. How's he doing it with nobody's on the field outside of James Cook, a hodgepodge of receivers, and I think injuries and a multitude of things finally caught up, and I think it's a good thing. I hate losing.
You think it's a good thing that this happened to them?
Yes, absolutely. I remember it with the Eagles last year. Anytime a team goes undefeated, you kind of wait for that straw to break the camel's back, and I'd rather it happen early, figure out what's going on. And it's Derrick Henry. I don't know how much of the Bills you've watched in years past. I know you're a Bills sympathizer, but Derrick Henry.
I watch him every week, man.
Derrick Henry, even when he was with the Titans, it was always, how the hell are you going to tackle this behemoth of a guy?
Yeah.
He doesn't always have the yards, but
I think
he'll punch you in the mouth.
Absolutely, and I think for Baltimore, for him, obviously he was at that point where, as a running back, when you get upper 20s, 30s, young 30s, you're considered an old man in that position, and I think that's where where Tennessee was kind of. They were not going to go with him because they weren't sure, how much longer they'd have, how much tread was on those tires. Baltimore took the chance on him. I say good for Baltimore that they were able to, kind of get that and shore up some of that. And, unfortunately for Buffalo and Buffalo's defense, I mean, it was very, he ate their lunch. There's no real way to put it. From the minute he was handed the ball, the Bills defense, at least to me, didn't seem very vaunted or anything like that. They just kind of let it happen, and what happened there. So I guess the next question that I have for you is, where does, in your estimation, what's the thing that the coaching staff really should zone in on this week, between games here? What do you think that their primary focus was? I have to imagine. Yeah, you could say all areas of the ball, but in reality, the defense gave up 35 points, and the offense had a large inability to move and score and do what they did. Like, is it just a total team? Like, everybody's got to get their shit together, or what?
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I mean, we know it. I mean, the age-old metaphor, getting punched in the mouth. I mean, he ripped off an 87-yard run, which I was, happy about for my parlay because I had him over 60 yards and he knocked it out in the first play, right? But that's one of those. As soon as that happened and he was off to the races, I was like, oh crap, here we go. It's going to be one of those games because he's one of those guys. Once he gets going, he's you're not stopping him, and it's clear.
Sure.
The only thing that stopped him was Harbaugh pulling him off the field in the fourth quarter.
Right.
As I think on the Bills side, focus this week, I think, is just doing what you can with that defense. At least half the defense is out in some capacity from what you were expecting to start the season with, right? And
right.
I think the biggest thing is just, all right, learn from your mistakes. You're not going to face a Derrick Henry every week, and you're not going to face a Lamar Jackson. Although Lamar was not as effective as people would have thought against the Bills, but he didn't need to be.
Right.
So, you get a similar guy in CJ Stroud this week, and we'll look forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Joe Mixon, who, might be playing.
Right.
Earlier this week, he's not been practicing. So you may dodge a bullet there, but, you still have other weapons to worry about. And,
sure. And we'll get to that Houston game in a little bit, because I did hear some interesting audio from Stephen A. Smith earlier about, Buffalo, and about particularly Stephon Diggs. And I want your take on that. I'm not sure if you heard it or watched it at all, but I think it's worth covering because right at the very end of the video, in particular, what or Dan Orlovsky kind of said, I think should have put Stephen A in check really quickly, but we'll cover that piece later on. But let's get over to the other big news of the week, the second of the three big things here, because I want to talk about this. You, me, and Ryan, respectively, have kind of been going back and forth on the chat about Von Miller and the situation with him and how wild, unexpected, and weird it seems to be. So Bills defensive end Von Miller has been suspended for 4 games without pay for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. It was announced by the league on Tuesday. He'll be eligible for reinstatement following the team's Week 8 game at the Seattle Seahawks. He is going to miss this week's game, of course, against the Houston Texans, the New York Jets the week after, and then the Tennessee Titans, which, you know, depending on which team shows up, particularly for the New York Jets, it could be no big deal, and it could be a very big deal. They're really Jekyll and Hyde. The suspension appears to stem from allegations that Miller assaulted his pregnant girlfriend in November 2023 in suburban Dallas during the Bills' bye week. The NFL did not respond to ESPN's request for clarity over the nature of the suspension. I say that because I want to credit ESPN for giving me the news here in this article. Von Miller turned himself into the Glen Heights Police Department on November 30th last year on an arrest warrant for a charge of third-degree felony assault of a pregnant woman. He was booked into the DeSoto Tri-County Jail that afternoon before being released on a $5,000 bail. Sean McDermott declined to get into the reasoning behind Miller's suspension, saying, quote, I'm not in a position to go into the details on it, so you can assume what you can assume. That's where we're at on it," McDermott said just Wednesday. So just yesterday, he said that. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this and you know, from the sports analyst side of me, obviously that's a very, very big loss considering how he's been playing this year, but taking the element of the team away and focusing solely on this situation here, give me your thoughts and perspectives. One, as someone that would cover the Bills journalistically, and two, as a fan. How does the Bills Mafia compartmentalize everything that's going on here and what it could ultimately mean, not just for the team today, but going forward in the future?
Yeah, on the field, you know, it sucks to lose someone else on the defensive side of the ball, right? But you know, obviously this team over the years has shown that everyone can step up. You know, guys have been put in the situations you're like, oh gosh, you know, how is, you know, this person going to step up? And they do. You know, so I do trust Sean and the staff to get that taken care of. Outside of football, honestly, I think it's very interesting. I know we talked in the group chat about it, and I talked with a couple other friends that are Bills fans. And, you know, the timing is, you know, almost a year later after the incident, 10 to 11 months later, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how the NFL works with that. If they slow play things, that's, you know, not an area I'm familiar with. But I do remember after, you know, looking it up, I found something that I remember happening back in training camp, and Von Miller basically said, hey, you know, he said the case is closed. Maybe we'll just move forward and focus solely on football. You know, talks about enjoying being part of the Bills. So at first I thought, oh, something else, but you know, there's no way in the light of social media, all the, you know, physical media in person with, you know, video reporters and all that something would be hidden from the public eye at this point. But the other side is maybe something else came of it.
Right.
Obviously, I know the NFL isn't the legal side of things, so
sure,
I think they still determined that something happened. It is kind of confusing.
It came out of left field. You know, typically yes. what I've grown to know and understand about the NFL when it comes to these types of circumstances, you know, a name you mentioned earlier, Joe Mixon, even before coming into the league, before being drafted, there were some concerns because of things like that. The NFL immediately was kind of on that. You think of going back to Ray Rice and others that unfortunately fall into that category of folks that do those types of things. The NFL seems to act very quickly when it comes to that. So to me, outside looking in, yeah, I know what happened last year. I felt like it was addressed last year, maybe because Von was injured. It really didn't. It wasn't in the forefront. So perhaps maybe that might be a reason for it. But it just seems very long, drug out. Like I would have thought if this were going to be something that would happen, this would have happened the first 4 games of the season and not randomly after week 4. Like, oh yeah, by the way, guess what, Buffalo? It's puzzling to me. It's very perplexing.
It's almost like someone lost that sheet of paper in HR, and then they were cleaning out their desk and thought, oh, we're supposed to suspend Von Miller for 4 games at the beginning of the year. Oh, we'll just throw it on.
And indeed. Von Miller has 3 sacks on the year so far, which, considering it being his age 35 season, in that physically demanding of a role, coming off of the injury that he came off to, he was off to a very, very good start. But obviously, this is a very, very serious situation. And I'm not trying to heap praise on anybody that may or may not deserve it at the end of the day. Obviously, you want to let the legal system play it out and do all that. But it seemed very wild to me. Seemed again very off. But to your point earlier, and something that we've highlighted over the podcast several times over the course of the whole process era here, is that the Buffalo Bills have done a tremendous job, at least when it comes to backfilling positions and making sure that the next man up mentality is kind of. Baltimore could be an outlier game. You know what I mean? But I think overall they have done a very good job to curb some of these injuries, curb the storms. You think of the Milano injury last year, how devastating that was for them, but they seem to find their stride defensively. And then of course they made the offensive coordinator coaching change, getting rid of Dorsey and putting in Brady, and they kind of rebounded and did very, very well, adjusting, picking, moving on. Do you feel the Bills are prepared to do that with Von Miller being gone now, considering all of the injuries they had prior to this?
Yeah, I mean, look at how the first month of the season went, right? We've gone down to injuries that throughout the, training camp with Milano, and then, Berard and Johnson later in this early part of the season, and guys have filled in. I don't expect backups to be all pros 24/7, right? So
sure,
it's definitely a learning process, and you got 17 on the offensive side of the ball. Just let them go.
Of course,
absolutely, let them do their thing and focus on the defense. And hopefully those guys that are injured come back soon. And
sure,
with a transition to that, off the Von Miller topic briefly, Teron Johnson and Bernard have been practicing.
There you go.
Today, which is Thursday the 3rd. Bernard probably next week, if I had to make an educated guess based on the insiders on Twitter.
All right.
He's out of a non-contact jersey. Teron Johnson is in the red jersey, but
okay,
it could be precautionary for the week, and it's a good sign that Milano was also traveling with the team for whatever that's worth. Obviously, he's probably out till the last quarter of the year playoff time.
Well, he's the Josh Allen of the defense. For all intents and purposes, leadership wise, skill wise, the person that the younger players look up to on that side of the ball is Matt Milano. So it could be very much him just traveling with the team to be that extra presence, be that motivational factor, be that pseudo coach, if you will, on the sideline as he starts ramping his game back up to get back, hopefully, on the field, like you said, within the final quarter of the season. AJ Epinesa and Javon Solomon defensive ends. So I mean, I think they're okay with Epinesa there, and instead of Von Miller with serving his suspension. So it's a crummy news, but for the Bills Mafia, the Buffalo Bills team, you gotta kind of treat it as business as usual, and understand that the business side of it, which is that gross unfortunate side of it, is just as much a part of the season as drawing up any sort of player schematic or anything like that. So
exactly right.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead. We are going to pause for a quick commercial break, pay some bills. On the other side, we'll be back and we will talk about how crappy it was to be a fan of the team of the rest of the AFC East. Stick around. Just Podcast. Be right back here on the Gear Radio Network in a moment. And we're back. John Cimino here. Chris Downey there. All right. We're going to go to our third of the three big things around the NFL. Typically is what it's called, but we're going to go around the AFC East because I'm lazy. And it's sponsored by Go Frost Yourself, which is located in Rochester, New York. Go Frost Yourself does what other local bakeries do not. They bake from scratch, creating recipes themselves and using the best fresh ingredients they can find to create delicious flavors daily for their customers. Molly and Jen. Hi, Molly. Oh, hello, Jen. They've worked tirelessly to create what Go Frost Yourself has become today, and their passion can be tasted in the items that they bake. When you find yourself looking for an item for a special occasion, or maybe you just want to try their incredible cinnamon rolls, if you're local, you can visit Go Frost Yourself storefront at 2544 Ridgeway Avenue or gofrostyourself.com. You know what I was thinking as I was saying this, and that's why I had that word flub. Before we went on the air, I told you I was going to fill some time and show off some of my championship belts on my wall here. So if you will let me just go for a quick second here. Be right back.
Since we don't do video, John has rolled back and grabbed a few of his championship belts off his shelves.
So I'm going to show you this.
Heard me.
What's that? I didn't hear you. No. What did you say? I'll hear you in post.
I didn't say anything.
You talk.
You'll hear me in post. I didn't say anything.
You talk junk, brother. Yeah. Nah. I'm going to drop the elbow on you out there in North Carolina. Yeah. North Kakalaki. Understand? Tell Chris Golo. Yeah. JC Money said hello. But all right. So here he was my, for those listening, I am a pro wrestler. We know this. I have a championship wall here, and I wanted to show Chris this. Let's see right there.
Oh, that's beautiful.
This here is so it's a copy of my first championship belt. I was the New Millennium Wrestling Cruiserweight belt. And if you're saying this looks exactly like the WCW Cruiserweight belt from the 90s, you would be correct. So originally back then, this was in the year 2000 into 2001, when I had first started wrestling, they had taken like the replica titles just started coming out. So they were on this like almost like paper thin, like leatherish type thing. And their plates, like they weren't popping like this or anything like that. They were just kind of like flat. And it wasn't one of those foam wrestling replica belts, but it was, comparatively speaking now, one of those foam wrestling replica belts. But it was a WCW Cruiserweight belt. And what they would do is they would take like stickers that you go like Walmart and they have like the letter stickers and number stickers if you wanted to put on your house or something. And they put NMW on like all of those things. So that was my first championship, was this version of the NMW Cruiserweight Championship. But what I did was I ended up having my belt maker make it, legit and embed and put the New Millennium logo on it. So the side plates have it. It doesn't have WCW on it at all. And that was pretty cool. And then the second guy that I want to show you is something I created. Originally, I was going to do this. When I first returned to wrestling. It was going to be kind of like my $1 million title. But it's a play on the Florida Heavyweight Championship belt.
That's incredible.
And I call it the Rochester Championship belt. It's got the City of Rochester logo on here. Yeah. But then on the side plate it has the Rochester Americans and the Rochester Red Wings.
Old
which of course I'm fans of as
Oh,
a
yeah.
Rochesterian. But then just for the hell of it, I put my Super Money logo on one side here, and then of course shameless plug for the Gear Radio Network logo right here too. And originally I was going to debut it as like kind of like my $1 million title, like but then the weirdest thing happened. Today's generation likes yesterday's shenanigans, and I became like a baby face, a good guy. So that scrapped that for a little bit. And then I went heel, and it just never called for this because the heel version of my newer character is very much a like Dollar Tree Macho Man Randy Savage Bret Hart combo type deal that does absolutely nothing yet does a lot. So big. I wanted to get that on air just to one, fill time, but two, show you some of the cool stuff here. But you're taking some pictures in wrestling too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been doing wrestling photography for coming up on 5 years, minus a year for the pandemic.
Nice.
Got started down here. I'll give a cheap plug. My guy LeBron Kozan down at Firestar. For anyone that's listening that also watches WWE, Javon Evans, that's currently in NXT, is a graduate of his training program.
Nice.
So he gave me an opportunity just to shoot because, why not? Who doesn't love photos? And I've known him for 20 plus years. And
where can the listening audience look at some of your photos, wrestling or otherwise?
Absolutely. So I'll post on Twitter at CJ Downey. And then on the good old Instagram, CJ Downey Photos.
All right.
I think there's 3, if you're unsure, there are 3 pinned photos at the top.
Oh,
I believe, yes, it is Nick Nemeth, WWE's Dolph Ziggler, Dax Harwood, and Double J Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, very good. Very good. So you're very clearly a wrestling fan in general as well, which is pretty cool. I am as well. All right, yes. Let's get back to what they're really here for, right? Our trash talking of the AFCs, because it was abysmal, just top to bottom, just garbage juice here. Taking a look, we're going to start with the New York Football Jets. Bills Mafia's favorite Jets fan, me, is reporting Denver defeating New York in a barn burner of a classic, 10-9. It was just sloppy play overall. Bo Nix threw his first NFL touchdown in his 4th pro start. Aaron Rodgers held to 225 yards, completing 24 of 42 passes in the game. 0 tutties. The offense looked anemic. The defense did what they could do. Not a good day overall for New York. Over to yeah.
Oh no, I was going to add something.
Go ahead.
About Bo Nix, 12 of 25 for 60 yards. And my favorite thing on Twitter that I saw at one point, he was 5 of 10 for -9 yards passing.
Yes, that was early, and I think it was like the first half. That was
early in the game.
I want to say it was. I felt like that stat in particular, that game lasted quite a bit, yes, and the weather the weather elements was not very good. You could tell Nix was really clearly uncomfortable. He was constantly hands in the pocket and he couldn't quite get a good grip and wasn't able to throw it. But on the opposite end, the New York Jets weren't able to do anything with the ball at all, except kick a couple field goals. But anywho, San Francisco ends their 2-game skid at the expense of the New England Patriots, 30-13. Are we worried about the Patriots at all this year?
No.
Okay. That is very fair. And then finally, on Monday night, the Tennessee Titans, led behind Mr. Mayonnaise himself, Will Levis, future Hall of Famer Will Levis. Yeah. 31-12 over the Miami Dolphins. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was Mason Rudolph. Rudolph was playing. Yeah, Will Levis got injured. Mason Rudolph came in and led him to the victory. So it was Mason Rudolph time.
I won't even lie and say I watched the game. I'm being completely honest with you.
I just read a recap like 10
That's
minutes
fair.
ago. So
That's fair.
Tyrone Huntley, Snoop, he's going to get the start next
the
week.
Titans' first win of the year. Congratulations to Titans.
Yeah,
First win of the year.
Titans first win, Dolphins third loss. I think, when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, I've pulled no punches. Their fans annoy the shit out of me. Because they act like the Dallas Cowboy fans do for the AFC. I kind of have those like as an equivalent here, and it's crazy to think that Dallas has done a lot recent than Miami has in terms of championships. But that's the world we live in, right? We count titles.
That is.
Dallas has Miami has them too, but Dallas of the two teams has it later, but the fans act the same. So anytime the Dolphins kind of get their comeuppance, plus my ex-wife was a Dolphins fan, and
gross.
I had to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I had to pretend to be like, okay, yeah, go Miami for you, and I'm just like, can't stand it. But sloppy day if you are a fan of the AFC East. All right, moving on over to not Sunday night football. It is Sunday afternoon football, all day football. Yo. Oh, did I lose you? Me or you? He's putting me on hold. I think we may have lost him. We may have lost Downey.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
We're good. Yeah, we should be good.
All right. It wasn't me that was dropping off, was it, or was it you?
No, I had an alert that said my internet was unstable, but
oh, geez. Dagnabbit.
We're fine. I'm out. I'm out.
All right.
We're good. We'll finish.
All right.
We'll be good.
All right. We'll blow through this one as quickly as possible, just so we don't piss work off with the internet. Sunday afternoon football kickoff 1:00 on the Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS. Buffalo at Houston. Houston, they are 3-1. They are first in the AFC North. Last week, they won over the Jacksonville Jaguars, who the Bills decimated the week before, 24-20. We're facing quarterback C.J. Stroud, who's 94 of 139 on the season, 1,054 yards, 6 tutties, 2 interceptions. Joe Mixon, as we mentioned, questionable. 39 carries, 184 yards, 1 touchdown. If Joe Mixon cannot go, Dameon Pierce is RB2, but he is also questionable. So if neither of the two can go, Cam Akers is your RB3. Worth keeping an eye on if you are a fan of stats or your fantasy lineup. If you have one of those guys, you probably wouldn't. You probably have Joe Mixon, but you may want to seek alternative options there. But here is where we get into the revenge game talk, right? Is this really a revenge game? To me, no. But to Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, it is. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to say it's a first on Trust the Podcast, but it is certainly something that we don't do very often here. Is we are going to play a little bit of we're going to play the recording here, the audio. Let me just make sure I've got everything set here. This is ESPN Stephen A. Smith, and I want you to listen to this, Chris, and I want you to listen to this, Bills Mafia. He believes that Steph Diggs wants revenge against Josh Allen and the Bills in the most Stephen A. Smith way possible. Take a listen.
The issue why we brought up the word revenge, for example, was because of the rhetoric Josh Allen articulated when he was in front of the media weeks ago when they were having some success before they ran.
Stephen A., why is he not in Baltimore?
Hold on.
Why?
I'm getting it. I don't know. I know that. I'm getting to this point. He said Josh Allen was talking about how it's really great. I'm paraphrasing here, not quoting him directly. He was talking about how the environment is great. You can spread the ball around to different. Nobody's got egos. You don't have one individual demanding the ball. It was a direct shot at Stephon Diggs.
Right.
That's why we brought it up. That's why we were asking the question. You trying to tell me the Stephon Diggs you know? The Stephon Diggs you see play, as prideful as he is, the dude that I came on national television and told y'all last year he wanted out of Buffalo. I told y'all he wanted out of Buffalo. He didn't want to be there, okay? And I said, he can't wait to get the hell up out of there. So he's gone now, and you hear one of the elite quarterbacks in this game say that, where everybody and their grandmama knows exactly who he was talking about. And you're trying to tell me somebody like a Stephon Diggs isn't looking at that and saying, I can't wait to go up against these cats and remind them of who the hell I am and what they should be missing? You trying to tell me that's not possible?
But Stephen A., revenge means that Buffalo wronged him. Like revenge to get him, for him to get revenge, it would be because Buffalo wronged him.
First of all, were you able to hear that audio?
Yes, I pulled it up on my end as well, just to ensure that we didn't have any technological failures, so we're good.
Okay, cool. I'm in alignment there with Orlovsky. This isn't really a revenge game. Buffalo didn't really do Steph Diggs wrong. Unless I'm completely missing something, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what's happening. Yeah, I feel like I've covered this team enough with Ryan to know that, if the Buffalo Bills really did something wrong, it probably would have been highlighted and magnified 100 times over. This just seemed more like, to me, the Diggs separation is more the system kind of passed Steph Diggs by. And that was my interpretation of that whole fallout. What say you on that?
I agree. Orlovsky put it great. Revenge would be if Buffalo did him wrong. And, obviously we don't know what happened behind the scenes. There's all the speculation of he wanted out and, the system passed him by. And I mean, clearly, if you look at the numbers from last year, Steph Diggs didn't have a 100-yard game in, I believe, the last 2 or 3 months of the year. And I don't know if that was a Joe Brady thing, a Josh Allen thing, disconnect, or an injury that was hurting him. But there was something happening. I mean, a guy like Stephon Diggs, he wants the ball, and, everyone's going to remember him for his drop against the Chiefs in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Sure.
But also it's one of those that, sometimes it's time to move on.
Right.
Anything in life, it's time to move on. If, he wanted out because of, he's not getting the ball or he's not going to be the guy or whatever else behind the scenes. Buffalo granted that. I've talked about it a lot with Ryan and other people, and maybe a little in our chat. I can't remember, but Buffalo's having their down year by eating 31 million dead cap, whereas if they did it after was it the post June date or whatever? It would have been a 2-year cap. It would have been like a 2-year 20-something million cap hit. Take 31 mil one season without a lot of room to work and move on. So no, I mean, if he wanted out, he's out. I think revenge. I think a lot of it is media driven, right?
Slow news day.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, oh, it's a revenge game for Diggs. Also, I think it's weird calling it a revenge game when their Buffalo is going to be in Houston. It's not going to be Houston traveling to Buffalo.
Yeah. It's really, I don't know. Again, must be slow news day. It's, if you're flipping on one channel is all politics. The other channel is all sports drama. I guess the only thing that's for sure is that nothing is for sure there. But I will say that ESPN matchup predictor, 56% of America evenly, 56%, not even a 0.1% more or less. 56% of America believes that Buffalo will come out victorious in this matchup against Houston, traveling out west into the Dome. I am among the 56% as well that believe this. Chris, even though you're a homer, I'm going to ask the question too. Are you among the 56%? If you're not, explain why.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those where I think Houston's an up-and-coming team. We saw it last year. C.J. Stroud was great. He has weapons. He has Nico Collins, now Stephon Diggs. Joe Mixon, if he's good to go, he has the weapons. Josh has had weapons, but, he's also a lot more mature in the league now, as we've seen over the years. And, I think the one thing that could hinder the Bills are injuries. Among the injury reports is Khalil Shakir possibly not practicing this week. He wasn't out there today. Again, so he might not be playing Sunday. Obviously this is Thursday, so things can change between Friday and Saturday's injury reports. But that's a big weapon down for Josh the first month of the year. But I mean, we've seen guys step up, 8, 9, 10 other guys catch passes in the Jags game, right? So I mean,
sure, yep.
there's plentiful set of hands, and you got Keon Coleman slowly coming into his own.
Yeah, and that's
so I'm not worried
too.
about that.
Yeah, I think the big thing coming into the season was how were those 100 catches a year that Diggs provided going to be replaced, and it looks like, take the Baltimore game aside, we're not talking about that, but the 3 other games prior, they were doing a pretty good job of even distribution. And to your earlier point that you made before, when you started with your analysis there, I feel the system passed him by here because of the transition to Joe Brady. You noticed when Joe Brady took over, they were handing the ball off to Cook a lot more, incorporating a lot more of the running game, which opened up additional opportunities for Josh Allen, both with his arm and his legs. And really, it's everything in life is like a budget. You have to budget something. And I think in order to kind of adjust to that offense and then go on that run that they went on at the end of last season, ending in the AFC East Division Championship, you have to budget it from somewhere. And if everything was working, handing off the ball to James and letting James cook, surely Steph Diggs had to give up some of those touches too. Otherwise, you're just asking for trouble. And I think they balanced it well. The system, in my opinion, may have passed Steph Diggs by, but you're right. It could have just been time to move on, and that's what that is. I was a fan of Diggs while he was here, as was a lot of people. So I want to see him well, just not this week.
I agree. And one thing about Diggs, we talked about the system. Ken Dorsey was fired middle of November. Looking at the stats here,
okay.
Diggs only had 1 touchdown in that span after Dorsey was fired and Joe Brady took over, and it was in the loss to the Eagles, that back and forth game in Philadelphia, and he never eclipsed 100 yards. So he went 4 straight games. 5 out of the first 6 games, he went over 100 yards and didn't have anything in the 90s. It looks like, yes. So, and he was getting targets. Lowest target game was 5, and in the playoffs he got 9 and 8 respectively. And like you said, it's probably just the system. And eventually, if you try to force something, it's not going to work. And
right.
Well, time to part ways, and we'll see what happens.
Indeed, we will. 1 p.m. on CBS. Chris, my man, great job today. I appreciate you carrying me the podcast here. Being the mafia sympathizer here, you have a little bit more. I'm leaning a little bit more on you for your insider, kind of from a fan's perspective there. So I appreciate you jumping on. I know Ryan does too. Thanks again for the logo, and hey, join us again soon, will you?
Hey, if Ryan will have me. Speaking of Ryan, before we sign off here.
Uh-oh.
So somebody has a birthday in 2 days, and it's neither of us. So happy early birthday to the man, the myth, Mr. Ryan Wolf.
Ryan Wolf, happy
celebrating
birthday.
his birthday on Saturday.
All right.
I won't reveal his age, so I'll save him that.
You know what? Always and forever, Ryan, you will still be younger than me. Anywho, and with that being said, thanks for tuning in to Trust the Podcast, everybody. Normal cadence next week, normal shenanigans next week. I will not be the host. I'll be the co-host with the most. But again, thank you, Mr. Chris Downey. And we are Trust the Podcast. You're not. We will catch you next week. Post haste after the Bills beat the Texans. Yes, maybe.
Yes,
I don't know. Boomer. Hold on. I forgot, using a different software right now. Boomer, take it away and close us out.
No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Ciao, everybody.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.